Welcome. Great turnout. I always call this Snickers bar time. This is the time of day when you need a Snickers bar, right? I don't know why it's a Snickers bar, but I always know that it works. I think it's that sweet, salty combination and the protein in the peanuts that sort of help you through the hump of this afternoon. So I'm really thrilled to see such a great turnout. Thank you all for coming out. And you are in wonderful hands. You are here for the 3 o'clock to 4:15 session with Jorge Ramirez and emotional intelligence with young children. And I have to just plug Jorge because we kind of go back a bit now, which I can't believe, from our days with one of our programs, and he's been a mentor, and he's an early educator and has done several presentations for us. So when you're ready, I'm ready to turn it over to you. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. And hope that we will all get to know each other a little better during this session. So Jorge, you ready? Anything else you need from me?
Alrighty, good to go.
All right. Hi, Claudia. Thank you for dropping it in the chat. I'm going to be sitting in the background just to admit people as they come in until 3:10, and we'll go from there. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Ruth. Good afternoon, everyone. I will begin sharing my screen so we can get started with our presentation. So today's conversation revolves around emotional intelligence with young children. And brief introduction about myself. As Ruth mentioned, I am an early childhood educator. This has been my passion. For the past 25 years, I've been working with children as young as 3 weeks, as old as college students. And early childhood education found me um, through, hey, you know what? The position that I was working at a high school, it was closing, so I needed to do something else. I found an early education center on my way home, and I stopped by, asked questions. Little did I know that I was going to find myself in through this journey. I am a doctoral student at Pacific Oaks College, and my area of research is early childhood education, specifically on social emotional development, which brings us to our conversation today. I do have the luxury of teaching at Pacific Oaks College, Cal State LA, and East LA College, the areas of early childhood education, child development. Currently, I'm also a master teacher at Pacific Oaks Children's School, and I will be finalizing that aspect of my career in 7 weeks from now, and then I'll be transitioning over to teach full time at Pacific Oaks College. As Ruth mentioned, I have been a mentor teacher for institutes, USC, Alma Mater, Cal State LA, ELAC, Rio Hondo, Pasadena City College, Pacific Oaks College, and I'm also part of the California Early Childhood Mentor Program. So I am blessed with my career path to have had the opportunity to provide some form of knowledge and experience. I like to believe that a lot of my practices is research-based in the area of social emotional development, specifically on attachment theory. So that QR code there is for you if you want to get in contact with me. You also have my email that I do check on a regular basis. But if you want to connect with me via LinkedIn, you can use that QR code. If you want a copy of the PowerPoint, send me a message and I'll gladly send it over to you. So let's get started. Um, what's currently in your mind? And use the chat. Feel free to interact. When I do my Zoom classes, I like to keep it interactive. Unmute yourself, raise your hands, use the chat. I'm curious to know what's in your mind right now. Is it school? And if it's school, we're right around either entering the finals weeks or coming into the finals, capstones if you're a grad student, group research project if you're undergrad student, more likely. Is it family? And if it's family, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about your parents, children, extended in-laws. Then those outlier variables, right? The ones that are beyond our control. Like, are you stuck in traffic right now? Are you worried about society's perspective? Are you worried about politics? Is it your mental health? Are you thinking about your feelings, your psychological health, your me mind, your heart, your social well being? What is on your mind? So I'm going to look at the, thank you for contributing. Ellie is Child Development, Cal State LA. Francisco is uh, finals and completing papers. Annabelle's school group project and finals, says Claudia. Yes, lots of schoolwork to finish up before the semester ends. Yep. Uh, Samara says she's stuck in traffic, so she's thinking about her family. David is thinking about the group project. I think I know what you're talking about. Jasmine, oops, I lost you. Where'd you go? Jasmine is thinking about her finals and getting her license. Oh, congratulations. Ellie comes back to final and summer programs. Roxette from Compton, welcome. Musab is thinking about finals and graduation. How exciting is that? Congratulations on that. Francisco, it's how to best prepare for grad school. I welcome you to have a conversation with me if you want to talk about anything that's on your mind. I am not a clinical therapist, but I'm a good listener, and I will gladly provide you some sense of pathways in your career if you're thinking about education, specifically the higher ed or early childhood education. Jennifer says she's stuck in traffic, so she needs this informational session. Well, welcome. I'll tell you what's on my mind. What's on my mind is a lot of my students. Again, I'm blessed to have an opportunity to teach at different higher eds, and I think about, did I do a good enough job for you? Was I able to provide you with the right resources? Did I challenge you enough to provide some form of shifting your mind about how you view society? Was I a good mentor to you? Um, Family, that's always on my mind. And sometimes I dwell on that a lot, and I'll come back to family and throughout our presentation. I am really beginning to better understand those outliers, those variables that are beyond our control, and put them in the back burner. Not saying to be oblivious to them, but I am saying to put them in the back burner and don't let them control you. Mental health, I will be talking about that throughout our session. So I invite you to take this Mentimeter. If you have another electronic device, please scan the QR code. If you don't have another device, you can log into mentimeter.com, use that code. And the question is, how would you rate your social and emotional development awareness? So we're talking about right now. Here's the extra credit question, right? That some of us are just can't wait to get. How would you rate it if you think about your social and emotional development? Maybe you're thinking, well, what is exactly does social and emotional development consist of? And that's a valid question, but it's part of our conversation problem. So I won't give that away just yet. You do have an opportunity to provide your answers. Let me see, I saw something on the chat. Was that? Well, thank you, Ruth. Ruth put mentimeter.com and then put the code for us. So let's see. What do we have? Let me look this one. Let's present. Has anyone submitted it? So how would you rate your social emotional awareness? Is it moderate? Is it good or non-existent? Is it excellent? Oh, we have one. Thank you. Thank you for that. 2, moderate. Okay. So excellent. You have a really good awareness and understanding of it. Moderate, it's not so good, or non-existence. Moderate. Good. Those of you that are answering, thank you so much. I'm curious to know what contributes to your social and emotional awareness. Again, unmute, raise your hand. Roxette said poor. Anybody want to help us understand your rating? And please feel free and to express yourself. You are in a safe zone. You're not going to be judged. This is a conversation that I really enjoy having with my students, college students, parents that I work with. So let me see. So let me call you guys out. There's 28 of you in the room, and there's only 10 responses. Are you driving that you can't answer the question? There's no names attached to it, so I'm not going to know. Anybody want to give us your justification?
Yeah, I could say.
Oh, thank
So
you,
the
Elizabeth.
reason I put, yeah, the reason I put moderate is because I feel like sometimes as a college student, we sometimes are able to manage a few things, but sometimes we can't really do it all the time because we also have like our at home life, and sometimes that can like affect us sometimes with our learning. And sometimes we're like thinking about home, or like family members, and that's when it kind of balances the school life and like the personal life.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Anybody else want to share? No, there's 27 of us now, 26. Marina put moderate. Perla says moderate. Ellie says she can log in. That thing, Mentimeter. So you're more empathetic to people's experiences. Claudia says, sorry, driving, but moderate. Jennifer says moderate. Roxette says poor. Samara says moderate. If I were to, yes, if you're driving, please drive safe. If I were to rate my social and emotional awareness right now, I would give myself an excellent, but that's right now. This is part of my dissertation research. So there's a lot of reflection that I do with my research into really honing into the research that I'm finding and asking myself, how can I better myself as a human being, not just a professional, but as a human being? Um, how do I provide that opportunity in my relationships to have a healthy experience with me? Um, how do I become a better sibling, a better son, a better father? How do I become a better role model, a better teacher for my students, a better professor for my higher ed students? I hope that you all can resonate with that in the sense of wanting to get better, and the only way that you get better is if you self-reflect, right? So we'll come back to our PowerPoint, and then we'll go back to the Mentimeter in a bit. So here's Jorgito. Jorgito has gone very popular as of late in the past 4 years. Jorgito was born Mexican in La Piedad, Michoacan, to be exact. Shout out to my paisas out there. Migrated to the United States, very, very young age, and pretty much the argument is, oh, you were raised here, you're pretty much born here. But the reality is, no, I was born in Mexico. Throughout my childhood, I bounced around a lot from Boyle Heights, downtown LA. Actually, my late father worked at the Cecil Hotel, and a lot of the stories that he shared with us were very accurate to the documentary that's on Netflix. Very interesting. Eventually, my family settled down into the Boyle Heights, East LA area, right on Cesar Chavez and Lorena, if you're familiar, right? Los Cinco Puntos, El Pino. Um, that was my that was my hood. No gang affiliation, but that was where I grew up. I came into this country and started my school as a first grader. Didn't go to kindergarten, and back then we had preschool, but we didn't have TK or ETK. But I did start without English language, and my teachers really labeled me. That label hurt, and I can't explain to you how I felt at that time because I obviously don't remember. But what I can remember is feeling a sense of disconnection from my teachers, my school, my peers, because I was labeled. I grew up in poverty. My family, we were recipients of welfare and food stamps. Back in the day, we had food stamps. And my mom and my late father would describe me as being very tremendo. Uh, Always said that I had a lot of energy, which reminds me of my younger one, right? um, Corrito has a lot of healing to do. And now doing the research that I'm doing really helps me understand into the pain that Jorgito has gone through. But the hard thing is shifting that pain or those experiences or those emotions that have been solidified in my nervous system, those triggers that happen throughout the day, those encounters that sometimes I wish I would have responded differently, but I couldn't. So Jorgito grew up in an environment that was raised by a very traditional Mexican culture. And if you can relate, if you are from Latino descent, in my Mexican culture, growing up as a boy, I wasn't allowed to show any emotions. I wasn't allowed to express any emotions. The only one that I was okay to show was anger, because that somehow justified my masculinity, and didn't question it either, because as a boy in a very traditional Mexican culture, that's what made me who I am. My late father and my mom would argue with me as I was doing my undergrad and grad school, and they were saying, like, you turned out to be okay, Jorge, it's not a big deal. And the reality is, it is a big deal. It's a big deal because I conditioned, I was conditioned and conditioned my nervous system to respond a certain way that I thought was normal. And now as an adult, understanding that certain behaviors have certain consequences, it's kind of hard to change that behavior, right? Now as an adult, it's no longer Jorgito. Now it's Mr. Jorge Ramirez, right? And this is my anger. And my anger really stems from the lack of attachment. I'm not discrediting or bashing my parents, because I miss my dad every day. I love and respect my mom, and I appreciate both of their sacrifice to not just put through me, but there's 8 of us, all 8 of us, through a pathway that we were able to have a career now as an adult. According to Bowlby talks about secure attachment, and that's where we want to get to with young children. And I'm taking you on this journey back to Jorgito, in hopes that you would ride with me to see where I lack that emotional intelligence. And if you're working with children, maybe you see a Jorgito in your class and you're trying to figure out, man, how do I help him? Right? So John Bowlby suggests that to have a healthy sense of self, you need to have a secure attachment with your primary caregiver. That starts from a secure experience as an infant. In my culture, again, when an infant starts to cry, you don't pick them up. You just let them cry it out. You wait until they get tired and then eventually fall asleep. And if you ask my grandma will tell you that worked, because I did that with everyone. All of my uncles and aunts. And then eventually my uncles and aunts passed that down to our generation, all my cousins, myself, my siblings. And again, they would argue that it's fine because you turned out to be okay. What we don't see is what's going on in here and what's in here. That psychological damage, because when infants' needs are not met, they grow up with the sense of insecurity. They have this sense that no one is going to help me, so I must be helpless. When I first brought this theory to my mom's attention, she was like, nonsense, Jorge. The more that I reflected on myself and I would ask questions, well, what would you do when I would cry when I was an infant? I was in chillón. You'd cry a lot. I just wait till you write it out, and then eventually you'll be okay. Now as an adult, it aligns with my lack of trust. Because as an infant, that sense of, hey, you know what? I need to be fed, I need to be held, or I need a diaper change, but you're not helping me. Now I grew up with the sense of, I can't trust anyone, right? Children, infants can't say, hey, mom, dad, I'm hungry. They can't walk to the fridge either and just Let me see what's in here for snack. They can't go into the restrooms and attend to their needs. They're dependent on adults. And John Bowlby suggests that the best healthy way is to provide a secure emotional bond, and that is attending to those needs. When children have those needs met as they grow up, they tend to develop this exploratory behavior, confidence, high self-esteem. They feel good about what they're feeling inside, and they know that I have a secure base because when I was an infant, every time that I cried, my needs were met. Right? In my culture, we would call that los vas a embrasilar, right? You're going to spoil them. Let them cry. Another addition to the attachment theory is by Mary Ainsworth. She talks about attachment styles. She talks about 4 different attachments, which is secure, anxious, or ambivalent, avoidant, or dismissive, and disorganized. As I look at the attachment style outcomes based on my infancy experiences, it aligns with why I can be very anxious. It aligns where sometimes in my behavior and certain interactions, I'm very dismissive. And it totally aligns with, in certain situations, I can feel very disorganized emotionally. But as an adult, as a researcher, as a student of the field, I want to have that sense of security, right? Because those of us that have that secure attachment style tend to be more empathetic, sense of safe, stable, and satisfaction. So for those of you that rated yourself as having an excellent sense of social emotional development, I envy you because you had your needs met as an infant. You had this strong sense of attachment. You had that secure emotional bond. For those of us that are working with children, that's beyond our control, right? Children come into our classroom depending on what age you're working with. I work with 3-year-olds going into 4-year-olds. And last year, all those children were born in the pandemic. This year, they were born coming out of the pandemic. No social skills because the time that we were living, right? This isolation. Sure, there must have been a sense of secure attachment, but then what happens when that secure attachment leaves, right? A whole other conversation as we dive into different types of attachment styles. How do we help children develop this emotional intelligence? Well, through the research that I've done, I would like to present the first step is to label emotions. As I said earlier, in my very traditional Mexican culture, happy, sadness, fear, disgust were non-existent, especially because I was a boy growing up to be a man. Could I feel happy? Yeah, but don't overdo it because you're going to get overconfident. Sad? Oh, no, because somehow you will lose your masculinity if you show a sign of sadness. You better not have a sense of fear because eres hombre, you're a man, right? And disgust, that's not manly like, so don't even show that emotion. But anger, oh yes, that's totally fine. So now imagine Jorgito's in your class. And he comes into your class with no sense of social emotional awareness, no emotional intelligence. And all he's showing is anger. And you're thinking, how can I help Jorgito develop empathy? How can I help Jorgito develop this sense of all your feelings are okay? In my classroom for the past 13 years, I've taken a lot of pride, for lack of a better word, into acknowledging all our emotions and telling our children, all your feelings are okay. It's very interesting on the beginning of the school year, we sit down and have our morning conversation. And the question is, boys and girls, is it okay for us to feel sad? What do you think they would say? Anybody want to guess? Anybody has asked that question to their students? Go for Marina. You're thinking, Marina. Go ahead. Go,
Thinking,
go.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, I have asked some other student that question, like what you said right now, but they just stay quiet sometimes. They don't really respond.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's most of the time, and interestingly, well, let me finish this thought, and then I'll come back to what I was going to say. When I do ask children at the beginning of the school year about, and I'm just throwing numbers out, I would say more than 98% of the time, it's no. The follow-up question, is it okay for us to feel angry? No, with this emphatic. And then there's always that one student that's like, wait, no, that was me. That was Jorgito. Like, what are we talking about? What did the teacher say? Because I don't understand what she's saying. I'm just gonna go with everyone. Everyone say no, then I'm gonna say no. Because I don't want to be a liar. No. Anybody saying yes, then I'm gonna say yes, yes. Whatever it was, right? As the year went on, then eventually we start labeling emotions, start understanding that these are emotions. It's okay for you to feel that way. Interestingly enough, at the beginning of the school year, in my in-person classrooms, when I ask this question, some of my adult students will hesitate to answer that. It's like, do I say my cultural answer? Do I say my personal answer? Do I say my academia answer? What are you asking? I'm asking, is it okay for you to feel sad? Maybe 3, 4, 5 seconds after, and it's like, yeah, yeah. And then we dive into that conversation, right? But yes, me, I'm just looking at the Francisco. I don't know. Yeah, that's always very common. I don't know. More common with adults. I will share that. Mia says because they associate it with something negative, and that's a thing. That our emotions are not a bad thing. Our emotions is what we feel inside. Imagine if you grew up in a culture where, for whatever reason, they just didn't validate a sense of feeling happy. How are you going to grow up to be? I can share a lot of stories, right? We don't have time for that today. Imagine in a culture that they didn't validate the sense of fear. And I've had students like that where we're talking, especially around the Halloween season, right? And children are curious about ghosts and what are ghosts? I don't want to feel this way. They feel uncomfortable. So then the parents feel uncomfortable. They feel this sense of dysregulation because their children feel uncomfortable. And I learned this from one of my mentors. He is the executive director at the Children's School, Pacific Oaks Children's School. He said to me, we have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I thought, gosh, that's so true. If you are not ready to acknowledge all these emotions and to acknowledge that all these emotions are okay, we have more we have more talking to do than this workshop. With young children, it's helping them understand that all your feelings are okay. You want them to develop emotional intelligence. You want them to feel this excellent sense of social emotional development, that you have to be willing to acknowledge all of their emotions. Now, these are the core emotions. Obviously, there's some in between. There's the uncomfortable one. There's nervousness that can stem from either fear or anger, possibly even sadness. We're not going to dive into those. We're focusing on the core ones, right? So with young children, to develop this emotional intelligence is not asking them why you feel that way. It's asking them what's making you feel that way. As child development students of the field that we are, we know that in child development, the WH questions, the WHY, the why question is the last one they master, which usually comes around third, maybe fourth grade. I mean, you ask them why, and they'll give you something that's not even closely related to what you're asking. But from a research aspect, the WH question, why, is usually the last one. So we're asking them, why are you feeling sad? Because I'm sad. Because I don't know. What's making you feel that way? Social and emotional development is about self-regulation. It's about emotional awareness, problem-solving skills, articulation and labeling emotions, and active listening to children. I can't say was yet, right? Got 7 more weeks, but I've been in the preschool classroom for 25 years, started off as an assistant, moved my way up to a master teacher. Never was into administration. Always liked to be directly teaching, and then I got the opportunity to teach higher ed. And started off at East LA College, then Cal State LA, and now Pacific Oaks College. I've been teaching them since 2017. Social and emotional development is part of teaching, but in my 25 years of experience working with young children, I've only had one curriculum that talked about social emotional development. One curriculum. I've had other curriculums. I've piloted many curriculums, the academic ones, the colors, numbers, shapes, sizes. Social emotional development, just one. And I would keep thinking, what's up with all these challenging behaviors with children? Why do they misbehave? So in the research that I'm doing for my dissertation, I found a correlation with challenging behaviors closely associated with lack of social emotional development or emotional intelligence. Why? Because they don't know how to regulate their behavior, because they don't have emotional awareness, which lacks problem solving skills, because they don't have the articulation or the labels of emotion. Therefore, they can't listen to their peers. So think about how all of this is closely connected, and it just comes back to social and emotional development. Lisbeth put some, oh wait, hold on. No, yeah, Lisbeth put, I've noticed that after the pandemic, social emotional development has been implemented in schools. So Lisbeth, yes, I completely agree with you. I think that there has been a huge push for mental health. There's been a huge push for social emotional development. But the reality is that we are talking about it more, but we're not doing it. When your car's broke, where do you take it, or who do you take it to? Someone that knows about cars, right? If you're not feeling well, you broke a bone, where do you go? To a doctor. If your heart is hurting for whatever reason, where do you go? Everyone's going to tell you, oh, you go see a therapist, you go see a counselor. But how many people are actually doing it? So yes, I agree with you, Elizabeth. There's been a huge push for it. But I want to challenge you into really diving deep into that and tell me what curriculums are being used to implement social emotional development. I've heard of, I can't think of that name of a curriculum. And when they brought it up, I said, well, tell me more about it. And the response was, well, we have it there, but we're focused on the colors and numbers and shapes and sizes because we got to get them kinder ready. Right. And that's a big misconception. Preschool is not just getting them ready for kinder. Preschool is getting them ready for life. And your academics, it's going to come to you when your brain is ready, when you start developing those executive functions, right? Your social and emotional development, according to John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, that has been since infancy. But let's take it even further back. If you research the Gottman Institute, they suggest that a child's temperament is easily influenced by the woman's third trimester, depending on her level of stress and type of stress. If she's having a high level of stress, anxiety, frustration, guess what? Guess who's absorbing all those emotions? The child. And there's a direct correlation with the child's temperament with the mother's third trimester. When I first read that, I couldn't believe it. So I asked my mom, hey, Mom, how were you when you went down the list of 8? I analyzed our temperament, 100%, 8 out of 8 on the dot. Then when I shared that research with my mom was laughing. And she goes, I know, Jorge, estás loco. Yeah. You tend to tell me that a lot when I give you research that somehow you don't agree with, but it's hard for you to refute, right? Let's see, who's that? Rolando Cano wrote, as a Chicano male, or as a parent in general, I have identified in myself that even when I am facing an obstacle and a need, I have been culturally programmed not to ask for help. And that mindset can carry into classroom. I don't know if you or any of my fellow attendees have identified this in themselves. Yes, I have. I sure have. Because I'm aware of this, I have broken the cycle in my own family and with children I have worked with. Rolando, that's off to you. Do me a favor, let's connect. Let's have this conversation more into, um, let me know how I can help you continue to foster this, because I admire you doing this. And I am sure that each of you that is here wants to do something. If not, you're already doing it. And for that, I applaud you, because we need to work in collaboration to really emphasize and push for social emotional development young children. Yes, of course. Yes, Rolando, go for it. Uh, Unmute. You're driving.
No, no, well, I was driving, but
There you go.
you know what? Everything that you're addressing, I know you mentioned how, when you ask any questions, people hesitate. I myself, I'm very involved, like politically, but overall, just in my community, since I was a child, I know with like aside from what's happening in the classroom, and with parents, with this whole political weight that's fallen upon us. Like for me, I've been an engineer for 15 years, but during COVID, I found that I really enjoy working with kids. So I went back to school to become a teacher, but like at the beginning stages, TK, Head Start. I have a 26-year-old and a 15-year-old daughter, but one of the things that you mentioned, I found in myself that when the question's asked, I think we're outspoken. When a situation, pretty much when we hit that limit, the majority of us, regardless of our background, we tend to speak up. But I noticed that there's always a hesitation when something's asked. One, because we don't want to be the first. Two, because we feel like we're the only ones talking in this conversation when there's a group of people. So I kind of get the sense that I may be overwhelming people, but I think you've addressed a lot of key points. Um, but I found in myself that when I was 6, I became a full-on. I back then it was ESL, it was in English learners. But the moment that I understood English, in the 80s, my parents went through the whole amnesty thing, so I felt that weight of having to translate for anybody and everybody. And culturally, we're always taught to be quiet, don't speak out of turn, don't ask for help. It's almost like it carries a certain shame, and I know that it's not just Mexicans or Hispanics or Latinos. It's everyone. It's ingrained in us to a certain degree. But I was going to ask, have you noticed or seen this system kind of fractured into the educational system, so, where people are no longer carrying this into the classroom? Because, like, I've been reading a book called, I don't recall, I think it's called something like We Need to Do More Than Just Survive, but it's about education. And it mentions how, some people, they may be of a certain background. Like, let's say, I'm Chicano. I'm born here, but I'm, Mexican blood. But if I were to go into teach in Beverly Hills, I'm carrying something into that setting that these students may not understand. So I am now effectively changing their mindset in a positive or negative way, and it works vice versa. There's opportunities where you can give back, and you kind of get these breaks in your those student loans where you go and people donate their time in working in an urban community, but they carry their tensions into the classroom. And I've noticed that affects students, but Have you noticed any change in the academic world where there's more of like meetings or something where teachers kind of speak openly about this? Because I've never seen it myself, but I do hear it more and more in my courses. So the ideology is this is what we want to do, but as a parent volunteer involved in the school districts, I don't see it translating because I recognize the business side of education. And I see that there's teachers that are new and they carry in such positive energy, but eventually you kind of see it tearing away at them. And I'm just kind of curious if you've seen these conversations coming up where where teachers are openly kind of discussing their, I guess, their traumas to try to break that cycle.
Thank you for your contribution, Rolando. I appreciate it. I am blessed to serve in many committees, advisory committees throughout Southern California. I've had the opportunity to also present this workshop, similar topic, tweaking it around with boundaries, with challenging behaviors, with healing of challenging behaviors throughout the state of California. And like I said, I think it was it Lisbeth that mentioned in the comments about we're talking about it, but the actual implementation of it, I think that's the next step. Think back to the pandemic, it was really frustrating. I worked for one of the largest school districts at that time, and there was this incentive to open the schools back. But what the government was going to, the governor, what he proposed was whoever started opening their schools back in person, they were going to be given resources, financial resources to have a counselor or a therapist at every school. I left that school district 2.5 years later, and my school still didn't have that. So it's political, it's politicized. And I think that this is where we hold our administration accountable, our elected officials, into saying, you know what, enough of this standardized testing, enough of these measures of academia and not prioritizing our mental health, our social emotional development with young children. We need to do more. That's why I said when we started, right, we need to work in collaboration. We need to start spreading the word into saying, you know what, I'm on board with this, and let's bring in some more research. Let's bring in those that have written research on social emotional development, and let's have a big convention on it. You know, last week at Pacific Oaks College, we had the Best Arts Conference. A couple of weeks before that, there was the STEAM conference. When have we had a social and emotional development or emotional intelligence conference? Right? Why? Because it's uncomfortable for us. Whatever the situation is, I think moving forward, it's not complaining about it. It's let's work in collaboration to get there, right? But thank you for your input, Rolando. So what does it mean of understanding the emotions with young children? In my own personal experience, I never separated the behavior from me. And as a teacher, that's one of the things that I push on my staff is separate the child from the behavior. What that means is, first and foremost, help the child understand that we love them, we just don't like their actions. And their actions is not always a reflection of themselves. I'll give you an example. This morning as I was driving to work, I moved over to the right lane and I hear somebody blaring their horn. And as I turned around, some guy just waving at me with his middle finger. And I'm like, wow, okay, what happened? And I'm thinking, did I cut him off? What happened? Instantly, because I'm reprogramming my nervous system, I thought, that's the way you respond because you were triggered for whatever reason that maybe I merged on the lane faster than you did. So you're triggered, and the way you respond is with this aggressive attitude, this aggressive behavior. In my mind, I said, I know you don't mean wrong by it. You were just triggered by my behavior. With young children, it's important for us to understand what our triggers are and not allow those triggers for us to react in a certain way that's going to make the child feel as if it's a personal attack on them. So helping the children focus on their feelings and not on the reaction of those feelings. When I get upset, I'm going to start throwing things. I'm going to start cursing. I'm going to start insulting people. Yeah, I reacted like that once. And I'm retraining my nervous system into saying, you know what? I'm feeling this way. Automatically, my nervous system is on check now. It doesn't revert back to that default mode into throwing, shouting, insulting. It's now like, okay, and I know I'm feeling this way. When you want to help children regulate their behavior, what do we normally tell them? Take a deep breath. That's going to help them get centered, right? Another way of understanding emotion is recognizing our triggers. We've had this conversation, those of you that have taken any of my classes, is don't let the triggers control or dictate your emotions. Understand what your triggers are. Don't ignore them, but change the way you're responding to them. When you can do that as an adult, you know what your body's going through because you understand your emotions. Then you can start talking to children at their level with that so they can stay regulated when they feel dysregulated. Right? Your responses obviously have to be very intentional, which leads us to having a vocabulary to articulate those emotions. These are some strategies that, through the research that I've done, through practices that I've done, has helped me build that emotional intelligence with young children. I'm going to be honest with you, it's not easy. It's just as enough work as the schools spend on helping children write their name, understand the letters, all the other academic components. You can invest the exact same time on understanding of emotions, and you're going to get a lot of good outcomes, not just academically, but long term. And here's the biggest thing that to me was like, oh my gosh, I remember when I read this research, I called one of my mentors, Manuel Caldera, and I said, we got to talk. My mind is blown. I said to him, I just read that there is a correlation with children that have high emotional intelligence tend to do better academically. He starts cracking up like, oh, Mr. Ramirez, you knew that. And I said, I know. But for some reason, now that I read it in someone else's research, it validates that. Because I've been telling administrators this, I've been having workshops, and I've been telling people this. And for some reason, I sort of feel like I need a valid source. And here's research suggesting that, like, oh, again, it was that. So if you want children to be academically successful, there is a close correlation with children that have high social emotional development, emotional intelligence, tend to do better academically. How do you develop emotional intelligence? You have to be willing to understand your emotions. Using your social and emotional knowledge helps you manage children's behavior. Using your social and emotional development helps you build healthy relationships. As I've mentioned before, and I'll mention it again, and I don't shy away from this. Growing up as a male in East LA, Boyle Heights, a lot of my friends were down the wrong pathway, lost a lot of them to gang violence, saw a lot of things, very traumatic experiences. If you base it on ACEs, I would score probably like a good 9, if not a 10. Now, again, from a research perspective, I understand why a lot of my relationships really failed. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking of how much those relationships were impacted because of my lack of emotional intelligence. In other words, that ego inside of me never knew how to compartmentalize my wants or needs and always focused on doing what's best for me. And obviously, it hindered my relationships. So when children develop this emotional intelligence, you're not just talking about gains right now, you're talking about gains long term. This is one of the purpose of a group project that I give my Cal State LA students, into helping them understand that the long-term outcomes of child abuse, man, they're very detrimental to society. You're talking about at-risk behaviors. You're talking about perpetuating specific behaviors that can be hurtful to society. How do we change that? Again, the research that I've done so far, it all points back to developing emotional intelligence. So let's go back to your childhood. If you have another device, please scan the code. If you don't, go back to mentimeter.com, type in that code. There is a second slide to that. And reflect on your childhood social and emotional development. Here it is. Let me go on to the other slide. Give me a word. Understood, confused, good, chaotic, forgetful, happy, calm, sad, bad. I wish I had a better parent. I'm assuming that's with parents. Love it. I love that. Loving parents. I love it. So here's our word cloud. Okay, so one of it was in middle school. I was hanging out with my best friend at that time. And we were, what would that be? East of Los Cinco Puntos, maybe 2 blocks on Cesar Chavez. There was a donut shop that had an arcade back in the day, 25 cents, and you played arcade, right? I was with my best friend at that time, and he was involved in gangs. He would always tell me, hey, you got to get into the hood. And I was like, yeah, you guys are going to jump me to get into your hood. And then my dad's going to beat me up to get out of the hood. Enough of this beating up. I'm good. That day, he went his route, which was up the hill on Indiana. And I went through the alley that parallels Cesar Chavez onto Bernal, into the next block. I can't remember, is it? No, Folsom is up there. There's another street. I lived on Cesar Chavez, and there was an alley that paralleled Chavez that I would walk that way. So anyhow, as he went up the hill towards El Pino, he got killed. And it devastated me because that was my first best friend. I remember when I heard about it, I didn't even go to the funeral services. So I went to his graveside as an adult, and oh my gosh, was that so painful. My childhood was very violent, and my default was I got to be aggressive because I got to fight with fire. I got to fight fire with fire, right? I have to find a way to survive in this society, so I don't end up like my best friend. One of the things that got me out of that funk at that time was a counselor from USC went to Belvedere Middle School and told us about college. And I said, oh, I like the colors. Oh, I think I'm gonna be a Trojan. And I was blessed enough I did my graduate studies at USC. One of the assignments that I had to do was to reflect on my childhood because my area of research was early childhood education. And I did a lot of digging. It was very difficult to go back to Jorgito, to that time. And I keep coming back into, I didn't know I was feeling like that. Like I didn't know that I was sad because I had lost my best friend. I was angry. I was angry at everyone around. I was angry at the gangs. Every time I see someone that I knew was affiliated with the gang, it was like, was it you? Unfortunately, coming up on 5 years, I lost my dad. And I don't shy away from this either because this is my grieving process, right? I have not had the opportunity to grieve his death. My whole family, siblings included, extended families, you got to be strong. You got to be strong. In other words, stop crying. So guess what my nervous system would do the moment that I would start to feel those tears coming out? I'm strong, strong, strong. And I remember this was, we lost them in August of 2020, the pandemic. And I just remember enraged, angry at everything. My poor girls had to endure all that. Now I completely understand, especially my little Joy. My Bree was always very calm, very chill, but Joy absorbed a lot of that because I didn't know how to properly grieve my own father's passing. And I connected back to my childhood. So USC had asked us to go back and reflect on your childhood and asked me this question: describe your childhood in one word. That was the assignment. So I wrote one, nope, delete, nope, nope, painful, it's fine. And then there was a whole reflection on that into trying to figure out what wasn't. Fun, look at that, great, sad, happy, need for guidance, supportive, made me resilient. Um, I'm curious, made me resilient. The first thing that comes to my mind, not saying that this is what it is, would when my family brags that I'm very independent, but I was independent because I had to survive, not because I wanted to be independent. So I'm curious if made me resilient was out of survival mode, or was it because you wanted to persevere and build callus around your heart, around your nervous system so you don't get hurt? Was it a good thing? Looking at it now, obviously, when you look at it now, it's a whole different lens than when you were experiencing that. Exciting, playful. Loving parents. Oh my gosh. Bless your heart. Emotional understanding, loving parents. I love that. Happy. Bless your heart. Love, lonely. If you look at these words, I see a lot of what I felt, pain. Right? I thank you for contributing to the Mentimeter. So here's what we're going to do for, I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. No, let's break it down to 3. What advice would you give your inner child? Do yourselves a favor and take out a little note, little paper. If you have your phone, open up your notepad. Write yourself a little note and start by validating your childhood. Help to remove the shame, the blame, the guilt that you endured as a child because it was not your fault. And then provide some guidance to overcome the childhood experience. Oh my gosh, yes. Uh, I don't want to butcher your name, but Patton, tell me, can you, if you can, how do you pronounce your first name?
Hi, it's Asian A.
Asian name. I
Mhm.
love it. Asian name. It's okay to feel. I love that.
Mhm.
I love that. It's okay to feel. It sure is okay to feel. Jennifer was the only child. One of the things that I've learned through my journey of healing is it's okay to be lonely. And I, goodness, I would dread driving in traffic because it just like, we're not moving. Now I embrace it and put on a good podcast, put on some good music, turn off the radio, enjoy the sound of Southern California traffic. So it was hot. I'm not good with these weather, but the previous days that you had the light drizzle, cloudy, take all that in and just spend time to talk to my inner Jorgito. I'm going to leave you with this as we go on to the next one. It's been about 2 minutes going on 3. Ah, you're so right, Ruth. Yes, we need to be comfortable in our own company. That's not always valued in our busy society. Yep. That is so, so true. So true. Take a deep breath, take it in, and really enjoy yourself. There's this really good book. It's called It's Not Your Fault. It's a very deep book that talks a lot about healing your inner child. And I'm taking you through this journey of, you're probably asking, wait, what does this have to do with emotional intelligence? We'll come full circle in a bit, right? When we have that good emotional intelligence or social development awareness, we tend to understand children's behavior from a whole different lens. We know and we understand that, you know what, it's not personal. As I always mention this example when I inject this into my presentation is, those of you that work with children with challenging behaviors, I can assure you that they love you, they respect you, they admire you. Just as much as I can assure you that they don't wake up at 3 in the morning and think, how am I going to torture my teacher today? I'm not going to do my work, I'm going to be defiant. Yeah, I'm going to go torture my teacher. I want you to think of it from this perspective. Children that misbehave with you, and I want you to look at this from the lens that I'm giving you, okay? They misbehave with you because there might be a sense of trust. They might be lashing out at you because you're challenging them to feel different emotions because they don't know how comfortable those emotions are. All they know, all their nervous system knows what to do is to lash out. And I tell you this from experience. I've sabotaged a lot of my relationships because it was too good to be true, or because I felt that, nah, there's no way that this is genuine. And that self-sabotage has a lot to do with the voices that are in my head. And those voices is connected to the words and of the adults in my childhood that reminded me of how bad I was, how dumb I was, how not intelligent I am, how I'm never going to achieve anything in life. So now when I make a mistake, those are the same voices that I heard as a child. So as teachers, helping children develop these skills really starts with you trying to find a way to understand your own emotional intelligence. So this is Children Learn What They Live. It was written over 52 years ago. This is child development. And oops, Sabrina, don't tag on my board. And I welcome you to, I'm kidding. I welcome you to think about this and ask yourself, how valid is it? You're more than welcome to read if you are comfortable. I will start first, and then if you would like to unmute, please read the next sentence. If children live with criticism, they learn to condemn.
If children live with hostility, they learn to fight.
If children live with fear, they learn to be apprehensive.
If children live with pity, they learn to feel sorry for themselves.
If children live with ridicule, they learn to feel shy.
If children live with jealousy, they learn to feel envy.
If children live with shame, they learn to feel guilty.
This is indicative of children's behavior, right? So again, it's separating the behavior from the child. It's understanding that children behave a certain way because they learn to behave that way. Just as much as children can learn colors, numbers, shapes, and sizes, they can also learn about their emotions. They can also learn about developing their awareness and others' emotions. But let's come back to that conversation. How much time are we investing in these curriculums? How much time do we spend on helping children build these tools, these skills, so they know that, you know what, I'm feeling very apprehensive right now, and that has to do with my fear. So let me regulate my nervous system so I don't respond that way, because I know that I'm feeling this way, and it's okay to feel this way. Let me take a deep breath. Let me go to my secure base. Let me go to Mr. Jorge, as one of my students calls me. And let me ask him, can you read me a story? Because I trust my teacher, because I know my teacher will be there for me. Because throughout this school year, my teacher has shown that I can trust them. And whenever I need something and I ask for it, my teacher is there to meet my needs. So just as well as children can learn that undesired behavior, children can learn the desired behavior. If children live with encouragement, they learn confidence.
If
If
children
children live with tolerance, go ahead.
if children live with tolerance, they learn patience.
If children live with praise, they learn appreciation.
If children live with acceptance, they learn to love.
If children live with approval, they learn to like themselves.
If children live with recognition, they learn it is good to have a goal.
If children live with sharing, they learn generosity.
If children live with honesty, they learn truthfulness.
If children live with fairness, they learn justice.
If children live with,
Go ahead, go ahead.
hold on. Okay, I lost it. Go ahead.
If children live with kindness and consideration, they learn respect.
If children learn with security, they learn faith in themselves and in those about them.
If children live with friendliness, they learn the world is a nice place in which to live. Yeah. So yes, behavior is learned. And children that misbehave, again, some research that I've been doing, it's usually to get a reaction from you. So if we can learn that children's behavior can possibly be a trigger for us, let's learn how to deal with those triggers, so we're not conditioning the child to continue to repeat that behavior, but rather learn tools to help children understand what they're feeling, to articulate those emotions, and give them tools so they know why they're feeling, what's making them feel that way. Social emotional development and emotional intelligence is about accept children regardless of their behavior. It's about healing your inner child, right? Which includes forgiving your past and understanding what your ACEs was, your adverse childhood experiences. You really want to change this? This is the biggest challenge, is to change the culture of acceptance of toxicity. My culture has a lot of work to do. But you know what? My past culture, I am not going to allow that to influence my daughter's culture, because I am willing to change them. Provide an environment conducive to social and emotional development, right? So foster social and emotional development. Talk to them about it. This is something that really is helpful to them. Here are some strategies for reflection. This is the one that I invite you to take a screenshot of this one. These steps help you really to understand children's development. It helps you really understand how you can help them to develop these skills. and strategies around social emotional development, around emotional intelligence. Like I said, if we're willing to invest all this time on colors, numbers, shapes, and sizes, why not on emotions? Because emotions are universal. Here are my references. You're more than welcome to check them if you like. You're more than welcome to use this. If you need or want the PowerPoint, please send me an email and I'll be more than glad to provide this to you. I thank you very much for taking the time to be here. If you are in my class, please take a screenshot of this, and this is what you're uploading as extra credit. Everyone else, from the bottom of my heart, I sincerely thank you, and I hope that this has given you some form of guidance or some form of shifting your mind into how we are going to change society. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not happy with current society. And like my dad said, either you're going to complain or you can do something about it. And I'm taking the latter one. I'm not going to do it alone. I will humbly acknowledge that, but I do ask for your help and support. If you don't want to lead the charge, I'm willing to lead the charge. Just come with me and let's do this together, because you know what? We will definitely do this through building emotional intelligence of children. Thank you.
I thank you so much, Jorge. Wonderful words. It's definitely how we're going to change the current status of the world right now in our world that we're living. So you are right on, spot on, and thank you. If you haven't done so already, please, please, please complete our reflection. We always want to know how well we did and how well Jorge did, which we know he did amazing. So please, let's give him a shout out. And you automatically get entered into our opportunity raffle. And don't forget, we have another one 4 o'clock coming up right now. And then we have another one with Jorge, developmentally appropriate practices in preschool. So I'm going to actually, if you have a minute, I'll copy it and put that link in here. So you can go ahead and register for that, and we'll see you in about 15 minutes, and then stay around for our closing session at 5:30. So thank you so much, everybody. I am going to jump out, but if you all want to stay here and chat a little, feel free to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. If you're planning to attend the 4:30, we'll reconvene at 4:30. Thank you.